Section 6.2, factoring trinomials whose leading coefficient is 1. Again, this is supposed to be a review, so we're going to go over it probably a little quicker. If you need to rewatch the video and try the problems again, please feel free to do so. So to factor x squared plus bx plus c, this is a quicker way of factoring because the number in front of x squared is 1. So we can jump to the factors of x blank and x blank. And how do we fill in those blanks is by looking to find the pairs that multiply to give you the last term c that will add to give you your b. So be careful with your signs. So you're going to list the pairs that multiply to give you c, find the pair that adds to give you b, plug it into the blanks, and these are your blanks right here with the right signs, and then make sure you check your work by foiling. So let's look at number 1, x squared plus 8x plus 15. So that means c is 15 and b is positive 8. So the factors of 15 would be 1 and 15 and 3 and 5. Well, 3 times 5 would give you 15 and 3 plus 5 would give you 8. So therefore this would factor into x plus 3 and x plus 5. You could write x plus 5 and x plus 3 as well. Order does not matter. It's just the signs and the numbers are what matters. So if we multiply this out, x times x is x squared, outer would give you 5x, inner would give you 3x, which would give you 8x, and 3 times 5 is 15. So this is a great section to check your work on. So I'm going to circle number 2, but I'll give you the answer. Make sure you can get to x minus 3 and x minus 5. On number 3, we have x squared plus 3x minus 10. So that says c is negative 10. We need the factors of negative 10 that up to positive 3. Don't wait for the wall or the ceiling to give you the factors. Start off with 1 times 10, 2 times 5, and list all your factors. You know you need one of them being negative because a negative times a positive would be a negative. So if c is negative, one of them has to be negative. Now this factor does work because negative 2 plus 5 would also give you the b term of 3. So this will factor into x minus 2 and x plus 5. Only one factor will work. You won't have multiple answers. Number 4, x squared minus 2x minus 8. How does that factor? Well, the c term is negative 8 and the b term is negative 2. Again, one of them has to be negative. So I'm just going to put one of them being negative for now. We have 1 and 8 and 2 and 4. Now this one almost works. This would give me a positive 2, but I need a negative 2. So I know my signs need to be switched. If I still multiply those, I get a negative 8. Now if I add those, I'll get my negative 2. So that's going to factor into x minus 4 and x plus 2, or x plus 2 and x minus 4. Either way, it does not matter. So number 5, we look to see what are the factors of 5 that add up to your b term of negative 7. Well, the only factors of 5 are 1 and 5. I need both being negative because my b term is negative but my c term is positive. So you need to multiply and get a positive, and so either both have to be positive or both negative. However, when I add those, I don't get negative 7. So that means this one's prime. Once in a while, get into things that are prime, not factorable. So just know that you might run into a couple of those. And on number 6, I just want you to realize that you're going to start off the same way with the factors. But now we have that y squared at the end. So just like if we had the x times x and got x squared, we need a y and a y times y to give y squared at the end. Now how we're going to get that xy is when we do outer and inner, we get the x times the y. So what are the factors of 18? Well, 1 and 18, 2 and 9, 3 and 6, with one of them being negative. Why 1 being negative? Because my c is negative. This one almost works, but again, this is giving me a positive 3, so I know I need to switch my signs, and now it would give me my negative 3. So x plus 3y and x minus 6y. Now, one thing you got to be careful of is what happens if the number in front of x squared is not 1. Say, for example, on number 7, 3x squared plus 15x plus 8. Well, before you jump into what we call the AC method, look for GCF. So always look for GCF. And if you see what's in common, there's a 3 in common. So I'm left with x squared plus 5x plus 6. So we'll start off the same way. We now want the factors of 6 to add up to 5. Now 1 and 6 and 2 and 3. there's only one factor that works. Because I need everything to be positive, because everything's positive, I can only use the 2 and 3. I can't use negative 1 and 6 because that would give me a negative 6 when I multiplied. So again, make sure your signs are right. So 3 parentheses x plus 2 times x plus 3. So I'm going to let you do number 8. I'll give you the final answer. The final answer should be 3 parentheses x minus 2 times x minus 9. But show the work on how you get to that answer. So in number 9, we have 4x squared plus 12x squared, 4x cubed plus 12x squared minus 72x. Seeing what's in common is a 4 and an x. If you know your multiplication well, factoring is a lot simpler. If you don't know your multiplication well or your sign rules well, factoring could be pretty challenging. So now that I pulled out the 4x, my c term is negative 18, and I need to add up to a positive 3. Well, 1 and 18, 2 and 9, 3 and 6, with one of them being negative again because we need a negative 18. And then negative 3 plus a 6 work because that gives me a positive 3. So the 4x stays out in front because that was your GCF, and I ended up with x minus 3 times x plus 6. On number 10, your GCF is a y squared, so pull out a y squared. Show the work on how you get to the final answer. But your final answer is y squared, parentheses y plus 10 times y minus 8. So that's your C method when the number in front of x squared is 1, or if you can factor out a GCF, then it makes your life a lot easier. So again, I'm going to have you circle and do number 11 on your own, but you do have a 2w to the 4th in common, and then you're just going to find the factors of C that add up to B. So that would be your final answer. So the one that causes students a little bit more challenge is when the number in front of x squared is not 1. And this is what I call the AC method. So if you ever hear me say the AC method, that's because A is not 1. When A is 1, it's much easier to factor. You have different ways to solve. One way is by trial and error. Another way is by grouping, and there are different ways besides those two. But these are the ways we show in college algebra. I'm going to not do the trial and error because if you don't know your multiplication well, this could take a long time to get to it. So I'm going to do the grouping method, but if you know another way and it's mathematically correct, I'm okay with you doing other ways. So the grouping method says multiply the leading coefficient and the constant. What that means is the A times the C, and that's why I call it the AC method. So in this example, 3 times negative 10 is negative 30. Find the factors of the product whose sum is the coefficient of the middle term. So now I'm going to start listing my factors: 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 4 and doesn't work, 3 works though, 3 and 10, 4 doesn't work, 5 and 6, and I need one of them being negative so I can get a negative 30. Now what I'm trying to get is my B term, and my B term is a 1, positive 1. So the negative 5 and the 6, when I multiply, would give me a negative 30, and add would give me the positive 1. So that's the factors that work. Now because this is the AC method, there's a lot more work involved. So what we do is we write the middle term as a sum and difference using the factors from step B. So now I'm going to break up my middle term into negative 5x plus 6x. The A and the C stay as is. So 3x squared minus 5x plus 6x. Just like in the previous section, we now know what to do by factor by grouping. Group the first two terms, take out what's in common. Group the second two terms and take out what's in common. So this method alleviates the trial and error. You know what your answers are, you plug them in, you factor by grouping. So I'll take out an x, I'm left with 3x minus 5. Take out what's in common between a 6x and a 10 is a 2, and I'm left with 3x minus 5. So we've always said in 116, if these are not the same, you've done something wrong. They are the same, so we'll now pull out the common binomial, and we're left with x plus 2. So if I multiply this back out and combine like terms, I should get 3x squared plus x minus 10. So try it. Moving on to number 2, we have 6w squared minus 11w plus 4. We always look for a GCF first, and there's not one. So we're going to start off by multiplying a times c. So 6 times 4 is 24. I need the factors of 24 that add up to negative 11. So there's 1 times 24, there's 2 times 12, there's 3 times 8, there's 4 times 6, and I need both of them being negative. Why do I need both being negative? Because I have to multiply to get a positive, but add to get a negative. So I see that the negative 3 and the negative 8 would multiply to give me 24, but would add to give me negative 11. So now those go in place of the b term. So you're going to take those and separate negative 11w into two different terms. So we get 6w squared minus 3w minus 8w plus 4. We haven't changed the problem, because if I add those back together, I get my negative 11w. Now that I have four terms, factor by grouping, making sure that sign stays in between. So what's in common is a 3w, and then I'm left with 2w minus 1. Minus, I take out a 4, and I'm left with 2w minus 1. That sign has to change because you pulled out a negative. And if you didn't change your signs, those would not be the same, so you would know something's wrong. But those are the same, so we'll take out the 2w minus 1, and we're left with a 3w minus 4. Again, order does not matter, signs matter. So if you want to put 3w minus 4 and then 2w minus 1, that is fine. So I'm going to circle number 3 for you to try, but I'll give you the answer. I want you to show the work on how you get 7y minus 3 times 2y plus 3. Alright, so let's look at number 4. Start out by multiplying a times c. So 5 times 9 factors of 45 that add up to 2. Well, 45 is 1 and 45. Then we get 3 and 15. And then we get 5 and 9. And that's about it. Since everything's positive, I need everything positive here. But if I add, none of them are going to add to give me a 2. So what happened here? This is prime, which means not factorable. You cannot factor it because it is prime. Alright, so let's try some more. AC method you want to practice a lot because you'll be using it also in chapter 7. So starting with the next problem, 3x squared plus 5xy plus 2y squared. We'll start off by multiplying a times c. So 3 times 2 is 6. What are the factors of 6 that add up to positive 5? Again, we're going to use 2 and 3, not 1 and 6 because of the signs. So we'll take the 2 and the 3 and we'll replace the b term with a 2 and a 3. Now remember, the b term has an x and a y. So we have 3x squared, then we're going to have a plus 2xy, a plus 3xy, plus 2y squared. So now we'll factor by grouping. Group the first two, plus sign in between, group the second two. In the first two terms, there's an x in common, so I'm left with 3x plus 2y. In the next two terms, there is a y in common, so I'm left with 3x plus 2y. If these are not the same, you've done something wrong. If they are the same, you need to pull it out as a common factor. And then what's left is the x plus y. Again, you can multiply this out, combine like terms, and you should get 3x squared plus 5xy plus 2y squared. So I circled 6 for you to try, and I'll give you the answer, show the work to get to it. So 3x plus 2y and 2x minus 3y. Alright, let's look at 7. 15x squared plus 11xy minus 14y squared. A times c, it's a big number. A times c is negative 210. I need the factors of negative 210 that add up to a positive 11. Well, you could try 1, and you try 2, and so forth, and you keep going. If you keep going, you'll finally end up with 10 and 21, with the 10 being negative. Because negative 10 times 21 is negative 210, but negative 10 plus 21 adds up to 11. So I'm going to take those two factors, I'm going to replace the b term with negative 10 and 21. So I get 15x squared minus 10xy plus 21xy minus 14y squared. Again, take your calculator, do 210 divided by 1, 210 divided by 2, 210 divided by 3, and so forth. Just make your list. It will get there pretty quickly. Group the first two, plus sign in between, group the second two. Between the first two, there's a 5x in common, so I'm left with 3x minus 2y. In the second two terms, there's a 7y in common, so I'm left with 3x minus 2y. Then I look to make sure that those are the same, and they are. So I'll take out the 3x minus 2y, and I'm left with 5x plus 7y. Again, order does not matter. If you want to write 5x plus 7y and then 3x minus 2y, that is fine. Alright, so let's look at number 8. 9x squared minus 6x minus 24. You might rush into going into the AC method, but if you look closer, you'll see that there's something in common in all of them. You could take out a 3, and then with 3x squared minus 2x minus 8. Make sure you always look for GCF first. So what happens is this 3 stays out in front, and now you're still going to do the AC method with the stuff on the inside. So 3 times negative 8 is negative 24. And with the factors of negative 24, that add up to negative 2. What are the factors of negative 24 that add up to negative 2 would be 4 and negative 6. Because when I multiply, I get a negative 24, but if I add, I get a negative 2. So I'm going to replace the b term with 4 and negative 6. So I get 3x squared plus 4x minus 6x minus 8. So now that I have 4 terms, I'll factor by grouping. Keeping the 3 on the outside, keeping brackets of everything on the inside. What's in common with the first 2 terms is an x, so I'm left with 3x plus 4. Minus, what's in common with the next 2 terms is a 2, and I'm left with 3x plus 4. Again, that sign changes because you have the minus sign in between, so you're factoring out a negative. Those are the same, so now I'm going to have my 3 on the outside. I pull out the 3x plus 4, and I'm left with x minus 2. So I'm left with the x minus the 2. I don't need the brackets anymore because now I have all multiplication, so I can just keep the 3 out in front. So on number 9, I'll give you the answer. Show the work to how you get to 3, and then 3y minus 4, and then y plus 5. So the GCF is a 3, so pull out a 3, and then go from there. So number 10, we have 9y cubed minus 39y squared plus 12y. Again, looking for a GCF first, we see that there's a 3 and a y in common. So I'll take out a 3 and a y and look at 3y squared minus 13y plus 4. So now keeping that 3y out in front, I'm going to start off by multiplying the a times the c. So a times c is 12. I need the factors of 12, that up to negative 13. So 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4, with both of them being negative because you need to multiply and get a positive. So the only factor that works would be the negative 1 and the negative 12, because when I add, I get a negative 13. So I'm going to have the 3y out in front, and I'm going to have to put a bracket and do everything in the inside with the AC method. So I'll have 3y negative 1y minus a 12y, and then I still have plus 4. So now that I factored by grouping, I'll group the first 2 and I'll group the last 2. So 3y bracket still. What's in common with the first 2 terms is a y, and then left with 3y minus 1. What's in common with the next 2 terms is a 4, and I'm left with 3y minus 1. Again, you're taking out that negative. I'm kind of testing you over this to make sure you're catching yourself. Again, if those are not the same, you've done something wrong. So at this point, the 3y is going to stay out in front. I ended up with a common binomial of 3y minus 1, and then I'm left with y minus 4. So I'm left with that y minus 4, and so my final answer is 3y times 3y minus 1 times y minus 4. AC method is really important, so learn it well.